What's up, guys? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more of our videos. Also, make sure you follow us all over social media so you don't miss any of our content or show announcements. Is there a specific moment within the last few years where you think it made the most sense to trade Jonathan? And that had they done it at that point, it would have been better for both of the parties?
Yeah, I mean, to me, as time goes on, the most obvious moment was January of 2024. And that was when he got benched in a game against the Nuggets. And Steve Kerr benched him because he made a couple mistakes on defense and they were trying to win a game. That happened to be that game that Jokic basically hit a half-court heave to win. It was like the peak of like, what can't he do, right? Like he was in like one of those moments. But the Warriors were winning when Kuminga was on the floor. He got taken off. And just that was a year's worth of frustration of him getting, the short leash. Whereas, like obviously like Steph has his games where he turns the ball over, but he doesn't get the short leash on a turnover, that sort of thing. And he leaks to Shams that he's losing faith in Steve Kerr, which is hilarious. He might be the worst player in NBA history to demand a trade publicly at that point in his NBA career. Like, if you just think about it, it's like, who are you to be publicly blasting your championship head coach like this? It's like, it's one thing if LeBron does it. It's honestly, it's like one thing if like Westbrook or like established consistent all-stars do it. It's another thing if it's a guy who's proven nothing in the context of the league. To me, that was the moment where a more savvy front office would have realized this isn't going to work. This is not going to work. The head coach, the star players, they have very specific expectations, and he just does not want to buy in the way they want to, or maybe he can't. There's always the possibility that like he's just too raw. Like the only way he's going to learn is giving him 3,000 minutes with no leash, and they don't have the space to do it. There's always that argument, which is to give him what he needs to get to where they need him to get to. They would actually have to be okay with throwing a season away, and they were never okay with it. And so to me, that was the moment they should have done it, because he was right in the middle of what was probably the best play of his career in that January. He went on to, I can't remember the numbers, but it was something like, he scored over 20 in like
games
in a row
games or something. Yeah, something
it was just
like
a consistent thing where you could see the vision of what he could become as a player, right? Where it's just like no one can stay in front of him one-on-one. He's too quick and too strong to be guarded one-on-one in an open paint, And so that was when Siakam got traded to Indiana. And I know there's rumors that Siakam wasn't willing to re-sign with the Warriors. We'll see. Every player says that until you put the money in front of them. Every player said Jimmy was unwilling to go to the Warriors until they said they would max him. He was unwilling to go, and they said, "How do you feel about taking a $10 million a year pay cut or something?" And he's like, "Nah, I want to go to Phoenix." It's funny how those things change, right? So to me, that was the obvious point that they should have done it. Hindsight's 2020. Also, just from a realistic standpoint, middle of his third year, it would have given the team who traded for him at least a year before they had to make a contract decision. Because now the single biggest issue they're dealing with, even if they want to trade him, trading for him and guaranteeing 9 figures is a different thing than trading for him when he's on a rookie deal and you have 18 months to figure out how much you really like him and how much he's foundational for your team. So for me, it's easy to say they should have just traded him on draft night. But to me, that was kind of the one where it's like, okay, you kept him during the draft. He didn't develop as fast as you wanted, and you didn't have the space to give him the play anyway. And now you have these public outbursts in a way that's kind of unbecoming, honestly. And honestly, the way they played it, I think only fueled him to kind of have an attitude and a disdain for what they were doing, because I could have seen him getting suspended for that. You could have seen another organization be like, you can't do that. You can't publicly do that. We're suspending you. But they put him in the starting lineup the next game. They essentially gave him what he wanted. So a lot of it was hoping that, this will come together. I think hindsight shows us you can't, human nature is what it is. And you kind of have to be a little more pragmatic and realistic in these things.
Yeah, I put down after the Lakers loss in 2023, which is more or less the same trade cycle, right? Like
Sure.
that off season into the next deadline. Because like during the title year, I was advocating for it at the time. At the time, I was thinking like, this is a way you can push your chips in. You're effectively not using these guys. They're not in your playoff rotation. Why not
Hmm.
make some sort of move with Kuminga and Wiseman at the time to try to essentially maximize your title odds? Now, to Lacob's credit, he held off and you guys got the job done. And so at the time, he looked like a genius because he's like, now it's the two timelines thing. We have a championship team and we have these guys that could potentially develop into the next era. What he missed there was just the lightning in a bottle you guys caught with Jordan and with Andrew in that particular season, where both guys went down a level the following season. And all of a sudden, it looked like you needed more firepower. And that was when the move should have been made. To your point, was at that point in time when it was clear going into that spring of 2024, they clearly don't have the same level of juice that they had the previous season. I think that was when Andrew was dealing with all of his drama too, if I'm
Sure.
not mistaken. So like it was right in that window in time where there was a long enough window of time after the trade for a team to evaluate Kuminga without having to pay him. Whereas now it's a completely different equation when you're talking about bringing him in with all that money. And it's like, and it's not even like a hindsight thing. I remember most of you there is a segment of Warriors fans that is extremely high on Kuminga, but most of the smart Warriors fans that I talk to and the people who cover the team are in your camp, which is talented young player. There's no reason at all why he shouldn't be able to go somewhere and make good money and make mistakes. But it's just not the reality. This is the situation that they're in. And I do think there's a certain amount of arrogance organizationally that
Yes.
they thought they could fix John. And I think that's where most of it went south.
Or just like do what's never been able to be done, which is the fusing of like two timelines where players are in vastly different stages of their career is the issue. It's not inserting young players into a team. All good teams have to find a way to get production out of younger legs. Uh, Pretty much every title team you could find has some young player who plays some form of a role, and even if it's just an energy role, even if it's like what like Christian Braun was for Denver, where it's necessary. Sometimes you just need a guy who's got more energy and can do things like that. They were dealing with players who just radically looked at the game differently. So the fit was just never there. And you're right, arrogance. Arrogance was the single driving force behind it. It's flying too close to the sun, thinking you can do it all. It's just reality has a way of humbling everyone, right?
Yes. So if you had to choose between retaining Kaminga on a team friendly number, let's call it a 1 year, you mentioned this before we went on the air. Like, what if he signs like a 1 year, $20 million deal to re enter free agency? Would you rather have something like that or one of these sign and trade packages from a Phoenix or a Sacramento?
I mean, based on the quoted sign and trade packages, those are really hard to swallow. Although I am increasingly becoming a Devin Carter fan. I will say he does check boxes of the type of player they keep trying to trade for.
Mhm.
But he's also young, so who knows if
Mhm.
he'll be able to do it. I think I'm still going to lean on the sign and trade and just put faith in the fact that they can get a little more than what we've heard quoted. I just think this is too far gone. I think him coming back on a short term deal, and let's assume it's 2 years, his incentives are going to be about playing for himself as opposed to what the team needs. Like, I just don't see how it gets better. And then you throw into it, like, he's human. This is not, there's no way he feels good about this. He's going to say all the right things, but there's no way he's feeling good about this. To me, it's like you kind of have to just cut bait and hope that what you get's the best you can get. And like, hopefully you can get a first round pick out of someone. I don't even know if that's possible, but if you could, then at least you have that to play with in an ancillary move. And maybe the player you end up getting for Kuminga is not the direct 1-for-1, but it's like you get something from someone, you combined it with something you have, you move it in another direction, and you bring a player who fits what you want to do more so. But I think it's too far gone.
Yeah, if they brought him back, it's in the same sort of situation where you go into this last season where Kaminga was basically a matchup specific rotation piece. Like he was essentially out of your rotation for major games in major
Mhm.
situations last year. And so if you look at it from Jonathan's perspective, even signing like a 1 year deal at 20 million, let's just call it that, he's sitting there thinking the reason why I'm in this predicament is I effectively have not shown enough to the league to dictate that I'm worth what I'm asking for. So therefore, in this upcoming season, I need to show more. And
Right.
what would he have seen in this situation to believe that coming back would give him the runway he would need to show that? And so I agree with you. I think we've been since, for lack of a better way of putting it, since that January 2024 kind of inflection point, this has been destined for this sort of separation, and it just hasn't happened yet. So, you mentioned Devin Carter. Do you think is there like a dream player that you wish you could squeeze out of one of those two teams in a sign and trade?
I mean, my dreams keep getting smaller the longer this goes on. You asked me about the Kings 2 months ago. I'm like, ooh, Keegan Murray, that'd be nice. Now it's a much smaller ask. I mean, Keon Ellis would be nice. Like the Warriors. Okay, so if we take a step backwards, Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond, they're closing every game, right? That's your, or like when the chips are on the table and you're in the playoffs, you're planning on those three players being the best they can be in those moments. So what do you want around them? You want defensive versatility with as much shooting as you can get, right?
Shooting, yep.
So I know this has been kind of a trendy thing, but like the Thunder are a great example of this. And the Warriors have tried to trade for these type of players, like Derek White probably being the best in the league, kind of a point of attack defensive guard, but they also have the ability to hit an open shot, make extra pass. Basically, just a guard who could defend, who's got length, the kind of the Drew Holiday archetype. Um, Keon Ellis in Sacramento is one of the better ones that most people don't know about because he's on a team. Like he's the type of guy who you put him on a good team and everyone's talking about him the way they talk about Caruso. He's
Yeah.
not as good, but at the same time, it's like, wow, that guy makes so many winning plays. Wow, he really took Shea, out of his offense and made everything uncomfortable for him. Oh, he stuck 3 open threes, like that sort of thing, right? Like I think guys like that are harder to find than we give it credit for because people are always like, well, you could just find a role player anyway. Well, clearly you can't because there are all these teams who have like championship foundation players and they can never seem to find the right role players to go around them, right? So that's one I'd be interested in. On Phoenix, I don't know, man. There isn't really anything because it's like, oh, I
Would you
want Devin
take Dylan
Booker.
Brooks?
Uh, I he is objectively a winning player who will help teams, and I think Houston's going to miss him more than they realize.
I agree.
But it's like
The
if there's
shooting.
one thing a team that Draymond and Jimmy does not need, it's another guy who's doing like the same things they do, So
That's a good point.
I guess I would in terms of the asset, but it's like, yeah, no, they need a different type player. So yeah, if they can get anyone who I can confidently say, oh, this guy's getting 25 minutes every night, I consider it a win. And ideally, I'd like them to be under 27 because this team needs guys with young legs. They just need guys who are gonna bring the energy to those January games where Steph kind of wants to hang out off ball for 70% of the game because he's gonna have to do a lot of work later in the season. And Jimmy just kind of wants to play facilitator mode because of the same thing. So the more young legs that fit what they want to do, the better.
Yeah, it's funny. Same thing in the mailbag question this morning. I had a question that was like, do you think teams are markedly changing the way that they're going about their business this offseason because of the success of Oklahoma and Indiana? And it doesn't actually feel like there have been that many, versatile perimeter athletes that have been moving around. And one of the things I talked about was like, there's just not that many of them. Like everyone wants the guy that can dribble, shoot, pass, and defend and do it like with some size. And it's just extremely difficult to find in the modern NBA. And that's why if you could get a guy like Keon, he's just the way you were talking about with the winning plays, I feel like those kinds of guys are always amplified alongside superstars
Yeah.
that actually set teams up with advantages and things along those lines. I think that in general, that shooting piece is a big one. I look at Moses Moody essentially. Moses is bigger than Keon, but having a
Sure.
player that could basically do what Moses Moody did, but not go through the extended shooting lulls that Moses dealt with last year. Like the way his shot just completely fell apart in the postseason was a big shot at this particular Warriors team.